Early on October 9th, 2004, two men pulled up near a North Philadelphia row house carrying gasoline while the people inside had no idea why they had been targeted. One man entered first and fired warning shots through the home, then another followed with gas cans fitted to burn once they landed inside. Within minutes, the house was on fire. 6 people were trapped, and 4 of them were children who had never spoken to police. The man whose cooperation triggered the attack was nowhere near that block. He was already locked up, while people connected to him were paying for information prosecutors hoped he would eventually bring into court. That night would become one of the ugliest witness retaliation cases in America, but before getting there, another story started with nothing more than a 15-year-old spreading a lie. On September 27, 2016, around 8 that night in Alexandria, Virginia, Carl Tminino told her 14-year-old son Sergio to take out the trash. Sergio walked toward the dumpster outside their apartment, but when he failed to return, his family had no clear explanation for his whereabouts. His 3-year-old sister kept searching afterward, while Carla explained that Sergio was in heaven, leaving the child looking for him there. What nobody inside that apartment understood yet was that Sergio had already been pulled into another teenager's disappearance several weeks earlier. That teenager was 17-year-old Edwin Escobar Mendez, who vanished in late August after MS-13 members drew him toward Holmes Run Stream Valley Park. They told Mendez a meeting was happening inside the woods, although prosecutors later said gang members believed he was spying for rival 18th Street. Once he arrived, the group attacked with machetes, pickaxes, and knives, stabbing him more than 100 times before burying him nearby. His legs were broken so the body could fit inside a pre-dug grave, which turned the park into the hidden center of everything that followed. Mendez's family reported him missing on September 1st. Then his brother searched Facebook for anyone who might know where he went. That search eventually reached Sergio, who knew Mendez, and told the brother that MS-13 members had abducted and killed the missing teenager. Sergio had also been shown cell phone video of Mendez's murder, then taken to where the body was buried, giving him dangerous knowledge. Still, Sergio had never gone to investigators, which made the reason he became marked even harder to understand. The rumor came from Morris Castro, another 15-year-old who told an MS-13 member Sergio had been talking with police. Castro later admitted under oath that he was actually the teenager who had been communicating with law enforcement, so he shifted suspicion towards Sergio to protect himself. Once that accusation started moving through the crew, whether Sergio had truly cooperated stopped mattering, since leadership treated the allegation like enough proof. Prosecutors said Sergio was later lured toward the same Holmes Run area where Mendez had been murdered, then killed by gang members. The investigation spread beyond that rumor, pulling names from a larger Northern Virginia MS-13 network into federal court. Elmer Zelaya Martinez, Henry Zelaya Martinez, called Certero, Oscar Contreras Aguilar, called Atrevido, Jonathan Melgar Martinez, called Oso, plus Pablo Miguel Barrera Velasco, called Oscuro, were charged. Anderson Villatoro, called Enterrado, Francisco Avila Avalos, called Picador, Fredis Baires Abarca, called Lil Clandestino, Ronald Herrera Contreras, and Douglas Ramirez Ferreira also entered the case. Prosecutors later alleged that Edenilson Misael Alfaro, a high-ranking MS-13 figure based in El Salvador, had personally authorized killings through that wider command structure. For roughly 6 months, Sergio and Mendez remained hidden in shallow graves while both families waited without knowing what had happened. Police finally found the remains in March 2017, with Sergio's grave sitting about 50 meters from Mendez's inside Holmes Run Park. Years later, 5 defendants faced federal trial after several others had already entered guilty pleas in the case. In June 2022, Castro finally admitted that his lie had redirected suspicion towards Sergio, exposing how a 14-year-old got killed over testimony he never gave. 3 years earlier in Baltimore, 22-year-old Moses Malone survived a shooting that initially looked like a straightforward robbery case. On March 23, 2013, Malone was robbed and shot along the 2400 block of Greenmount Avenue by a man later identified as Norman Tyrone Handy. Handy belonged to the Black guerrilla family's Greenmount Avenue regime, part of a wider network involving violence and drug activity. Surviving that first attack gave Malone the chance to identify who shot him, but that identification created a second danger he could not avoid. On April, detectives showed Malone a photo array, and he picked Handy as the man responsible for robbing and shooting him. Handy later pleaded guilty to that robbery, although Malone had also been expected to testify against him in the pending state case. That made Malone valuable to prosecutors, while Handy's half-brother Wesley Jamal Brown also belonged to the same Black guerrilla family regime. Federal prosecutors later said another BGF figure, Johnson, directed Brown to murder Malone, suggesting the decision reached beyond one protective relative. On May 2nd, only a little more than 5 weeks after Malone's identification, Brown shot him with a .22 caliber handgun on Cokesbury Avenue. Malone died from that attack, removing the witness before he could appear in court against the man he had already picked from photographs. A little over 1 week later, Brown exchanged text messages with another BGF associate before selling the murder weapon for only $250. That sale became one piece inside a larger federal racketeering investigation, exposing years of violence around the Greenmount regime. The broader case reached 48 suspected BGF members and associates, covering an alleged 8-year campaign of drugs, shootings, retaliation, and discipline. Investigators connected that same organization to David Hunter's alleged 2009 shooting of 4 people while claiming BGF territory during the attack. The indictment also described the 2010 killing of alleged YGF leader Donatello Fenner, plus a separate 2011 shooting tied to accusations about speaking with police. Brown eventually pleaded guilty in early 2018 to participating in the racketeering enterprise, admitting murder, drug distribution, robbery, witness tampering, and witness retaliation. He received a federal sentence of 31.5 years, while Handy joined other defendants who pleaded guilty or were convicted elsewhere. For Malone, though, the chain had already closed years earlier when surviving one shooting turned him into the witness somebody decided could not reach trial. That brings the story to another city where the next target received warnings from jail before a simple pizza run ended outside her own home. By October 19, 2011, Crystal Fyffe had already spent months living with warnings that somebody connected to the Short North posse wanted her quiet. That evening in Columbus, Ohio, she stepped outside her Hilltop neighborhood home to pick up pizza for her mother and 11-year-old daughter. Only minutes later, her mother heard a gunshot, rushed outside, then found Crystal unconscious on the sidewalk with a bullet wound through her head. Her phone and keys were still on her body, which immediately made the shooting look less like robbery and more like something already set in motion. The road to that sidewalk actually started 4 years earlier, after Robert Ledbetter and other Short North posse members were linked to Rodrigo Williams' killing. Williams had been robbed and killed in Pickerington during November 2007 with money, jewelry, and marijuana reportedly taken during that attack. Crystal knew information about Williams' death, so by July 2011 she joined an associate named Palmer for a voluntary meeting with Fairfield County prosecutors. During that session, they discussed Williams plus other crimes Crystal knew about, which placed her inside a much bigger investigation than one homicide case. Ledbetter was already sitting in jail, but being locked up did not stop messages from reaching the woman now speaking with prosecutors. He sent letters, made phone calls, warned Crystal against cooperating, then allegedly circulated photographs so Short North Posse members could identify her outside. Crystal told her mother she feared a man known as Santa, who was reportedly viewed as somebody capable of carrying out Ledbetter's order. One July letter referenced Santa Claus coming to town, which sounded coded then, but became far more serious after Crystal was killed 3 months later. That threat made more sense once investigators laid out how violent the Short North Posse had become throughout Columbus during those same years. The organization had formed around the Short North neighborhood by roughly 2005, later producing crews called the Cutthroat Committee and Homicide Squad. Prosecutors tied Christopher Harris, Rashad Liston, Deonta Ussery, Clifford Robinson, and Ledbetter to that wider enterprise, which mixed robberies, drugs, weapons, retaliation, plus repeated killings. During a 2006 gunfight with rival D-Block members, more than 300 rounds were fired, leaving multiple people shot before federal investigators eventually reconstructed the episode. The federal racketeering case eventually named 20 defendants while connecting the organization to at least 13 previously unsolved homicides and multiple attempted murders. Lance Reynolds admitted responsibility for killings, including Quincy Battle and Shane McCowan, while Deshaun Smith separately admitted involvement in McCowan's death. After a 2-month trial ending in June 2016, Ledbetter, Harris, Liston, Ussery, and Robinson were convicted on every count presented against them. By then, Crystal Fyffe's killing had become one piece inside a much larger homicide structure, showing how information could put somebody in danger long before trial. Ledbetter allegedly relied on letters and outside contacts while incarcerated, but Milwaukee's Christopher "Guns" Anderson would later try something even more direct. Instead of hiding his intentions behind coded references, Anderson eventually wrote down names, home addresses, plus exactly what he wanted done to them. Christopher Anderson, known as Guns, served as an enforcer for Milwaukee's Brothers of the Struggle, usually shortened on the street to BOS. During October 2016, his name became tied to 2 killings committed only 6 days apart, starting with Jarvis Johnson near 32nd and Meinica. Prosecutors said Johnson was targeted after BOS believed his brother had witnessed a shootout along Interstate 43 and might cooperate with investigators. Killing Jarvis was meant to send that family a message, turning one man's suspected knowledge into another relative's death. 6 days later, on October 12th, Anderson killed Vincent Williams near 21st and Olive, adding another body during an already violent stretch. His activity during roughly 2 months also included charges involving a kidnapped man who was set on fire and shot during another brutal attack. Authorities further connected Anderson to an attempted killing of a separate homicide witness, plus another witness shooting linked to an unrelated BOS case. That pattern made Guns less like somebody reacting during isolated disputes and more like an enforcer repeatedly appearing wherever witnesses became dangerous. Even conviction failed to stop that mindset, which became clear inside Milwaukee's criminal justice facility during April 2017. On April, a correctional officer watched Anderson pass a note toward another inmate while prisoners moved into a classroom inside the jail. Officers seized the paper before it traveled farther, then found 3 alleged snitches listed with names, addresses, plus instructions indicating Anderson wanted them dead. 2 people on that list had already testified against him, while the third was somebody he believed had helped police elsewhere. Investigators believed those addresses were detailed enough for BOS associates outside custody to locate the intended targets had the note successfully left jail. Anderson was charged with 3 counts of solicitation for murder, adding another witness retaliation case after his earlier convictions involving Johnson and Williams. Milwaukee County District Attorney later described similar jailhouse pressure while discussing Courtney Stokes, another woman drawn into a homicide investigation. Stokes was not an eyewitness herself, but Shatavia Harmon had allegedly confessed directly to her, making her information valuable once detectives began asking questions. Anderson eventually received life imprisonment for the Johnson and Williams killings, while additional punishment followed from his attempt to target 3 more witnesses. His case showed how jail walls could remove a shooter from Milwaukee streets without completely removing his ability to threaten people outside. That same problem would appear again in Brooklyn, although the next target carried a snitch label years before one argument brought everything back. Inside Brooklyn's Louis H. Pink houses, Shatavia Walls lived around a neighborhood feud where building numbers could identify which crew controlled nearby ground. The 9D gang held influence around buildings 5 and 6, while Mock Bala Brims members were associated with buildings 7 and 8. Wall's husband was a high-ranking Brims member, placing her close to that rivalry even before federal testimony made her name more dangerous. Her own problems started during October 2017, when a confrontation involving 9D allies from Loopy Gang ended with Walls shot through the thigh. Walls survived, identified her shooter, Shaquem Boykins, then testified against him in federal court during 2019, helping prosecutors secure his conviction. Afterward, people around the Pink houses circulated flyers labeling Walls a federal informant, publicly attaching the rat reputation to somebody still living inside that complex. Nearly 3 years later, on July 4, 2020, an argument over fireworks brought her face-to-face with 9D leader Maliek Miller. The dispute became physical. Walls reportedly got the better of Miller plus his cousin. Then Miller called her a snitch before firing into the air. Walls apparently understood that this was bigger than one holiday fight, so she grabbed Miller's dropped identification plus a spent shell casing from his gunfire. She gave both pieces to her mother for safekeeping, seemingly preparing for whatever might come after the confrontation. Prosecutors said Miller then began planning her killing with Quentin Green, known as Wild Child, plus fellow 9D member. On July 7th, Green spent hours around the Pink houses waiting for Walls to appear while repeatedly changing clothes throughout the day. Those wardrobe switches were meant to complicate identification through cameras or witnesses, showing preparation rather than some random encounter that suddenly went left. Around 9:25 that night, Walls finally came outside. Then the shooters moved toward her along a walking path inside the housing complex. She tried escaping through the courtyard, but was shot during the ambush, leaving her badly wounded before the attackers disappeared from the scene. Walls initially survived, which kept investigators working a live shooting case while she remained hospitalized at Brookdale Hospital for the following 10 days. She died there on July 17th, turning the planned attack into a murder investigation that eventually reached several members of 9D. Prosecutors later said Green bragged about the killing on Facebook, using Walls' death to build the crew's reputation while authorities were already piecing everything together. That boasting brought street credibility into the same evidence trail investigators were using to reconstruct who ordered the ambush, who participated, plus why Walls became targeted. Federal prosecutors eventually charged Green and Miller through a superseding indictment connected to Walls' killing and the wider racketeering enterprise. Green pleaded guilty in April 2024 before receiving 35 years, while Miller took his case before a federal jury later that year. In June 2024, that jury convicted Miller on racketeering, murder conspiracy, murder in aid of racketeering, plus multiple firearm offenses. After 4 weeks of testimony, Walls had nearly 3 years between federal testimony and the attack that finally killed her, which gave an old label plenty of time to stay alive. Carl Lackl would get nowhere near that much time in Baltimore, since his killers moved while only 8 days remained before he entered court. In March 2006, Carl Stanley Lackl Jr., a 38-year-old foreman with Olympic Fence Company, walked through a Baltimore alley toward lunch and saw Patrick Albert Byers Jr. shoot Larry Haynes. Lackl called police and identified Byers, while another eyewitness named Parham initially did the same before recanting in April 2007 as trial approached. That reversal left Lackl as the prosecution's only remaining eyewitness, which made his testimony far more important just as Byers searched for a way to stop it. Byers obtained Lackl's Rosedale address through a defense subpoena, hid the paperwork inside a red cracker box in his jail cell, then passed the information outward through associates. Someone later spotted a 1987 Cadillac outside Lackl's home with a for sale sign displaying his phone number, giving the group a simple way to draw him outside. On July 2, 2007, 8 days before trial, a caller posing as a buyer contacted the house, then called back after 6 when Lackl had returned from work. A green Camaro arrived while his young daughters were nearby, and a 15-year-old shooter fired a .44 caliber Magnum several times, killing Lackl before he ever reached court. Phone records later tied Byers to associates around the shooting, while Frank Keith Goodman faced trial beside him, and Michael Jerome Randall plus Stephen Thompson reached plea agreements. In 2009, Byers and Goodman were convicted on federal murder for hire charges, with Byers ultimately receiving 4 consecutive life sentences instead of the death penalty. Lackl's murder later helped fuel debates over witness protection and illegal jail communications. Yet another jail defendant had already taken retaliation much further in Philadelphia. By May, federal investigators were closing in on Caboni Savage's North Philadelphia cocaine organization through the FBI Safe Streets Task Force. Savage and several associates were indicted on cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and firearms charges, while Eugene Coleman, one of Savage's own people, agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors. From custody, Savage still communicated through visits with his sister Kidada Savage, covert phone calls, and even prison plumbing, keeping contact with Lamont Lewis and other associates outside. On October 8th, Savage contacted Lewis about a favor, after which Kidada explained the plan and drove him past the Coleman family row house at 3200 North to 6th Street. Early the next morning, Lewis recruited his cousin Robert Merritt. Then the pair collected 2 gas cans before heading back toward the residence. Lewis entered the occupied home and fired warning shots, while Merritt followed by throwing 1 gas can with a lit cloth fuse, then sending another container inside. The fire spread through the house, completing the scene from the opening, while the actual cooperating witness remained locked away elsewhere. 6 people died inside: 54-year-old Marcella Coleman, 34-year-old Tamika Nash, 10-year-old Khadijah Nash, 15-month-old Demir Jenkins, 12-year-old Taji Porchea, plus 15-year-old Sean Rodriguez. 4 victims were children, while Eugene Coleman survived in prison even though the attack killed his mother and his infant son. The prosecution later tied Savage's organization to more killings, including Kenneth Lassiter's 1998 murder, while Lewis admitted involvement in the firebombing, plus 5 additional murders before cooperating against the remaining defendants. Lewis eventually received 40 years, Merritt received life, and Kidada Savage received life after convictions on 6 murder in aid of racketeering counts tied to the firebombing victims. Caboni Savage was convicted of 12 murders in aid of racketeering and sentenced to death, bringing the most destructive retaliation case back to the same pattern seen throughout the story. Sergio Tminino never actually spoke with police. Moses Malone identified his attacker. Crystal Fyffe met with prosecutors. Shatavia Walls had already testified, and Carl Lackl had 8 days left before court. Eugene Coleman survived, but 6 people connected to him paid for that cooperation before any witness stand could protect them.